Hey yo, hi Celeste. Cave diver's body still stuck upside down in rock after desperate 24-hour rescue. His name was John Edward Jones, and on November 24th, 2009, he entered the Nutty Putty Cave in Utah with friends and family as part of an expedition, and basically got stuck upside down in a very, very tight hole that was 10 by 18 inches. Long story short, what happened to this young man, he was 26. Here's a picture of him. What happened to him is he went exploring the cave with friends and family. The more experienced cavers went, spelunkers went this way, and then the rest of the group went this way. John went to the more difficult part, and with his, I think, brother, went down in some certain parts, and there's this place, I think what they said was it's called the birth canal, where it's a really, really tight space, and you have to blow air out of your chest, squeeze through the hole, and then breathe back in once you're through the hole again. Now, crawling through a hole that small, hundreds of feet below the ground, no thank you. I don't want to do any of that. But basically what happened is that he did that, and for some reason he got stuck there and was like, oh crap, I'm stuck, get help. So he told his brother to go get help, and he went back to 400 feet, back up to the entrance, got some rescuers, came back down again. By that time he was there for like 3 hours, stuck upside down in this portion of the cave. So they got the rescuers, and then they made a makeshift pulley system to pull him out. They pulled him out after, I think, a 12-hour excursion, and then the pulleys broke, and he slid right back into the cave again, and just went right back in there. And the guy really stuck hard, and it was a traumatic fall too. And then he spent a little bit longer in there, and I can't remember how much longer it was until he eventually passed away, because it was both traumatic. He had been hanging upside down for quite a few hours, and the blood that went to his body, or to his brain, basically just started shutting everything down. And the cause of death was cardiac arrest and suffocation, and a mix of both. So the reason why I wanted to bring this up is it's a really difficult story to really comprehend. The fact that you go into a cave and it becomes your own tomb. It's really crappy. It's a real tragedy to have that happen. They sealed up the cave. Well, they blew up a portion of it to make sure all the rocks fell in, and then they sealed it up with concrete on top. And to this day, his body is still in there. And became his tomb. The reason why I want to talk about that real quick is the human body isn't designed to be a certain way in a certain orientation. I remember learning about the consequences of long space travel times with the human body, and how our lymphatic system has to drain a lot of the toxins through our body, and gravity likes doing that in a certain direction. Otherwise, all those toxins go in reverse, and your body can't process them naturally like they do. So when the astronauts in outer space and they're floating a lot, their body doesn't know which way to send the toxins. The gravity isn't there to assist the processing of toxins and things that wants to get rid of, including the way the blood flows through your body, the way your circulatory system works. And it's strange to think about, if you take a chair or an inanimate object and you place it upside down on a table, you don't think, well, a chair is going to disintegrate faster because it's upside down. No, you don't think that. But with a living organism, if you place it in a certain direction, or you give gravitation a certain direction to have it spin in a certain way, or to not spin, or to get pulled on a certain direction and not get pulled in a certain direction, it changes it. It causes it to experience effects that alter its course, how fast it starts disintegrating. And for this talk, very shortly, I had found a paper about astronomers on their their theoretical stuff again, called the Terminator habitability, the case for limited water availability on M-dwarf planets. Now, a Terminator zone, imagine a host object over here, a host star in a very old star. A Terminator zone is a very thin, or hypothesized thin area where the star is orbiting tidally locked to another host. So it's too cold over here, it's too hot over here, so too hot for life, too cold for life, and there's life right in the middle like that. And it perpetually orbits around the star like that. And they're saying, well, there's a good chance that a lot of the objects are what they call are in where's that paper at? They're synchronous. They're in synchronous rotation. Instead of tidally locked to their host star, they say it's synchronous rotation, which is essentially saying the same thing. Now, the problem with that is in order to get to a synchronous rotation, in order to get here to where it's facing the same direction, just like the moon is with the Earth, you would have to have slowed down. And with this theory, you spin awful fast. And when the star starts cooling, collapsing on itself, there isn't any tidally locked or synchronous objects here. There aren't any synchronous objects here. It's spinning really, really fast, and as it cools and collapses, it starts spinning up really fast, and then it loses more and more mass, and it starts slowing and slowing and slowing down again. And eventually it starts to slow even more, and then what eventually happens is that then it stops, then it stops spinning, and then it can become tidally locked when it gets adopted by a host. Many hundreds of millions of years after life is already dead and gone on it. So tidally locked objects are not places where there's going to be any life. And the reason why I wanted to mention that here is what's called the rotisserie chicken effect. Is if you have a star that has a host star with life on it, and it's spinning, the life hosting star is spinning, and it stops spinning really fast, it starts slowing down, it's going to start rotisserie chickening the whole surface. So yeah, you have it spinning fast enough to where, you know, it's the similar temperatures throughout the host, or no, the other object, the orbiting object. What happens is that heat will stay on one side and it will start slowing down, and it will just cook the entire surface of it as it's starting to become synchronous with the host star. So it's going to cook the entire surface and kill all the life. So by the time it is synchronously rotating or becomes tidally locked, there wasn't anything left to sustain the life, as the astronomers are hypothesizing right here. So it starts out with life all over the surface, but if you slow it down, you're going to start to cook one side of it more than the other, and there isn't going to be this gap, this band of life on it. So what that tells me is they're assuming that a band of life could have formed just like that. That the object, when it was forming, was asynchronous to the host to begin with from the very beginning. But in this theory, there is no it was synchronous from the very beginning. All stars were spinning from the very beginning, especially if they were hosting life. But that tells me in their paper here that they don't actually have a theory. They're not working with anything. They don't have a main idea that they're building on top of. They're just spitballing. They're saying, well, we think this is what happens, and this is the truth. These are the possibilities that we should consider, but there's nothing that they're building on. For instance, it says here, rocky planets orbiting M-dwarf stars are among the most promising and abundant astronomical targets for detecting habitable climates. They haven't found life on any of these objects. So for them to say it's the most promising and abundant astronomical targets, they're working with nothing here. They didn't have a theory here. And also, planets in the M-dwarf habitable zone are likely synchronously rotating. They don't even know if they're synchronously rotating. They're just making that up. They don't know how they're rotating on. They haven't made any measurements of the rotation rates of these objects. They're just assuming that. But anyways, I think I made this video way long enough. Hopefully, and finally, to tie it all together, it's the spin of these objects. Like with the guy that got stuck in the cave, with astronauts who are in outer space. An object's movement, especially with life involved, is everything. If it moves a certain way, then that's what makes or breaks the life forming or surviving. And its orientation has a lot more to do with it what meets the eye. You just can't abstract away its orientation and whether or not it's spinning and just say, well, this is going to work just because. All right, there you go.